to align us with the current seasonal energies. Hear now the calendar of the soul, verse 19. To wrap mysteriously in memory that which has newly been conceived, be now my striving's further quest, and growing strong it shall awaken powers of selfhood in my inward being, and in becoming give myself to me.
May we now unfold this present gift through the memory of ancient tales made new in the mysteries that unlock the tasks of today, awakening our conscious intention to birth the deeds that can arise from the higher self, conceived from summer's wonders, where the cosmic word is ever stirring, calling for the unveiling.
And so it is that we come together on this, the Ides of August.
This 8th month of the year, there is a shift. We transition from the number 7, expressed in the expansion of summer, into a new octave, preparing us for autumn.
Thanks for that musical analogy of the octave. Did you know that the word August comes from Latin, meaning consecrated, venerable, marked by majestic dignity or grandeur? I think of the line as spoken in Les Miserables. This was a touching and august instant. All heads uncovered, all hearts beat high.
That line really speaks to the dynamic of this power-packed and sacred day.
So true, for it is the feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary.
This mysterious event, which represents the first fruits of the resurrection, comes during what the ancients called the season of Lammas, or loaf mass, the cross-quarter time between the summer solstice, St. John's, and the autumn equinox, Michaelmas. This is the time when John barleycorn, symbol of the sun god and the earth, is cut down, brought to the threshing floor, and then ground to make our bread. It is a time of sacrifice, of death and service to life, a time when we leave the sleepiness of summer to begin the harvest.
And the solemnity of the Assumption is a symbol of this sacrifice, a willing, conscious death, the transformation that makes it possible to go into the spiritual world in full wakefulness.
A conscious death. The conscious dying to the physical world is a resurrection into the spiritual world.
This feast day is also called Mariae Himmelfahrt, Mary's Ascension. It is the day the Mother of God, the Theotokos, the God-bearer, is taken up to the heavenly worlds by the angels.
This title, Theotokos, the God-bearer, is so resonant with me. Her holy day is also called the Feast of the Dormition of our Most Holy Lady, the Theotokos and Ever Virgin Mary, by the Eastern Orthodox. I looked up the word dormition. Again, it's Latin. It means to sleep, or the passing into or falling asleep.
Interesting image. The idea is that her body was not subjected to the usual process of physical decay, but was assumed into heaven to be reunited with her eternal spirit in the Holy Trinity.
This holy day, which has been celebrated since the 4th century, is a Christian version of the earlier cross-quarter festivals, and in many parts of Europe, it is known as the Feast of Our Lady of the Harvest. It is still common for folk to make offerings of new wheat to the Theotokos on this day.
So many provocative pictures connecting the cosmic and the earthly. And you know, right now in the starry sky, Jupiter and Mars are in conjunction, right? So we have this, the beneficent king and the willful warrior And they're meeting in the constellation Taurus, the bull. It's right near Aldebaran, which is the bullseye, right? So it's so we're right in the bullseye here with these two forces coming together. So what does that mean? How can we live into that, right? And then also in the picture, not far, you can see the misty Pleiades star cluster. So the seven sisters are there too.
I've been attuned to the star Sirius, rising in the southeastern sky before the sunrise these days. Its name means glowing or scorching star. It resides in the constellation Canis Major, which gives Sirius the name Dog Star.
It's intriguing to reverse the letters. The word dog becomes God.
Good one. Yes, that is provocative. But how do we find God? Or in this case, how do we find Sirius the dog star?
Well, you know, if you follow Orion, you can find Sirius. The starry belt of the mythological hunter points us into this dazzling star.
But what makes Sirius so special? Is it simply due to the fact that it is the brightest star in the sky? I have a feeling that it is also because humanity has a deep, ancient, mysterious connection with it.
Yes, since ancient times, across various cultural epochs, Sirius, the dog star, has been surrounded with a mysterious lore. Esoteric teachings attribute a special status to this scintillating binary star, outpictured in occult symbolism of the art, science, and religion from all ages.
Sirius, with its sparkling blue and white glare, is over 20 times brighter than our day star sun, and it's twice as massive.
Some mystery schools consider it to be the sun behind the sun. Sirius was at the core of our earlier advanced civilizations of Lemuria, Atlantis, ancient India, seen in the star wisdom of Persia, inscribed on the sacred tablets of Samaria, prominent in the Egyptian calendar, and on into Greek times.
I heard that the wisdom of the Dogon tribe in northern Africa and the Aboriginal tribes in Australia, South America, and Asia also revolve around the knowledge of this star.
Wow. You know, I didn't even realize how much of a through line this star provides. But I've always had a real deep resonance with this sun behind the sun. I feel like it's my home star, you know, and because I think there's this connection from ancient Egypt with Sirius, because it was recognized as this gateway leading into the mysteries of the goddess Isis.
The Great Pyramid of Cheops, which is dedicated to Isis, is aligned to the rise of Sirius. Chambers found within the pyramid are strategically positioned in reference and dereference to the rising of the dog star.
Sirius, like the goddess Isis, was called the Great Provider. The annual rising brought the inundation. That's what it brought. The inundation, the flooding of the Nile, right? Of the sacred river, the Nile, which in turn brought fertility and therefore wealth to the land of Mizraim. Mizraim is the ancient name of Egypt. The heliacal rising of Sirius marked the beginning of the Egyptian Sothic year in the Egyptian calendar.
Yeah, I've heard this term before. Helical comes from the name of the Greek god of the sun, Helios.
Right. This heliacal rising of Sirius occurs when the star meets the eastern horizon together with the sun in the constellation of Leo.
Exactly. This alignment is often called the Lion's Gate. The lion, symbolizing tempered strength, guards the entrance of the stargate Sirius provides. where potent energy of change flood at this time, available for us to use for the rest of the year.
The ancient Egyptian name of the star Sirius is connected to Sopdet or Sothis, personified as an Egyptian goddess who is a co-mingling of the goddess Isis with Osiris after he became god of the underworld, working with Anubis. Sothis was depicted with a five-pointed star upon his head.
With the rising of Sirius, a sacred gate, which joins the earth with the cosmos, opened. The ancient Egyptians knew this. Their temples were aligned to this conjunction, heralding the flooding of the fertile Nile. It is at this time that a sacred rite occurs. The outer aspect is a celebration called Lishnapsia, the festival of lights for Isis of the sea.
The sacred story attached to this Sais festival includes the lighting of many lamps set afloat on the sea to assist Isis in her search for the slain sun god Osiris.
Later, in Greece and Rome, it became known as the Festival of Torches, or Nemoralia, a 3-day event celebrated around the time of the Ides of August, commemorating the foundation of the Temple of Diana on the shores of Lake Nemi.
In antiquity, women would adorn the lake with lamps. Then they would march with hunting hounds along the shore carrying torches. There, they would offer the fruits of the harvest to Diana. These ceremonies also honor the Rex Nemorensis, the king of the wood, as well as Egregaria, the lady of the lake.
The Golden Bough speaks of these rites as the original impulse behind Excalibur, the mythical sword of King Arthur.
And my Italian Strega Nona kept this festival as well. It's thought of as an ideal time for the renewal of vows and oaths to the goddess.
The date, August 15th, has also become associated with the underworld goddess Hecate because of the connection to the waning sun as a symbol of the inevitability of death, which is seen as a stage of preparation before the resurrection.
And in Greece, even today, Hecate is given offerings during the dog days of summer to protect the crops against blight and storms.
Also, around this cross-quarter time, we experience the Perseid meteor showers, our wake-up call, so that we can activate and forge the iron in our blood that gives us the courage to face the dark of the year and the battle that takes place at Michaelmas.
You, Dawson, a little musical interlude. Very nice. Yeah, so to bring in the correspondence with the cosmic workings that these festival times invoke, I've been pondering this idea of the supersensible Michael school. Have you heard of this? Does it resonate with you? Because you know what? Perhaps we were there together in that cosmic college in our life between death and rebirth in the 15th century. And yeah, it's true. We often forget the details of what we learned in school, right? I mean, we drink the draft of forgetfulness for a reason. But we can trust that the foundations are there and that it's our responsibility to build on these foundations. To earn the degree in the school of life, we have to take up the wisdom teachings out of our own initiative.
This was modeled for us in the 19th century when the Michael School went a step further, becoming a laboratory, a vocational high school, an alchemical altar, where the teachings are put into practice. Rudolf Steiner called it the cosmic cultus, a practice he named the cognitive ritual. What has come down to earth from that school and from the cosmic cultus is seen to live in the world as applied anthroposophy. The Mysteria, Mystica, Americana is one such application.
You're muted, Lisa.
Steiner's Mizraim service works to unfold the new Rosicrucian initiatory system. The name Mizraim denotes the recapitulation of the mysteries of ancient Egypt, the third cultural epoch. In alignment with spiritual science, we are to reclaim the essence of those mysteries, to renew them now for our fifth age of the consciousness soul.
It's fascinating to me that Mizraim is the occult mystery name for Egypt, and that the German word Dienst, so Steiner calls it the Mizraim Dienst. Dienst means service, to serve, to be of service, to offer a willing sacrifice, an offering done in freedom, a service to each other, a service to our fellow sisters and brothers, to work in service, offering support in the building of conscious community.
And to serve the divine spiritual worlds, building bridges in all realms, as we strive to become co-creators with the creators, collaborating together in the Christic unfoldment of the highest human and cosmic evolution.
The ritual work in these new mysteries brings to life through color, speech, sacred geometry, movement, ritual tools and symbols, a communal, reflective representation of the wisdom, beauty, and strength realized through the workings of the divine spiritual worlds.
And of course, to prepare for the temple workings, we each do our own set of esoteric exercises, which correspond to whatever grade we're working in. Exercises versus gestures, correspondences, that through imagination, inspiration, and intuition, safely build new spiritual organs.
We bring out this brief picture of our work with the MA to you today, inspired by the fact that on this day, August 15th, 1906, Steiner made a statement about the new mysteries and about the origin of the cosmic ritual.
This ritual can be nothing else than a mirror image of what is a fact on the higher plane. At the end of the 18th and beginning of the 19th century, there hovers in the immediate neighborhood of the physical world a sense, a great supersensible event consisting of supersensible acts of ritual, an unfolding of mighty pictures of the spiritual life of beings of the universe, the beings of the hierarchies in connection with the great ether workings of the universe and the human workings upon earth.
Such a great quote. And Steiner continues. It is interesting to see how at this most favorable moment, a little miniature picture of this supersensible ritual and action flowed into Goethe's spirit. Transformed and changed in miniature, we have this picture set down by Goethe in his fairy tale of the green snake and the beautiful lily.
One of the themes central to this tale is that of the temple, with its three kings, the representations of wisdom, beauty, and strength. This is also characterized by Rudolf Steiner as a path of initiation. The power of perception is represented by the golden king, coming from the imaginative faculty giving us wisdom, that of the Silver King, brings inspiration from the equanimity of feelings, and that of the Bronze King, which we are still learning to strengthen, building us up to intuition springing from the will.
The three altars in the fairy tale are also in the Steiner's cognitive ritual and artistically shown in the temple scenes of the mystery dramas.
Steiner further states that the ritual appropriate for our time was, quote, prefigured by esotericists, and in particular, the initiate Melchizedek, over 3,000 years ago, and then taken up by the Rosicrucians, who said,
Shape the world in such a way that it contains wisdom, beauty, and strength. Then will wisdom, beauty, and strength be mirrored in us.
If you have used your time to this end, then you will depart from this life taking with you the mirror image of wisdom, beauty, and strength. Wisdom is the image of Manas. Beauty, piety, goodness, the image of Buddhi. Strength is the image of Atman.
it is not through idle contemplation that the human being progresses on earth, but by incorporating wisdom, beauty, and strength into the earth.
In reference to Steiner's autobiography, we hear from Marie Steiner that, quote, when Rudolf Steiner first made his public appearance with the intention of removing the veil of esotericism, he took Goethe's fairy tale as his starting point and spoke about the altars of wisdom, beauty, and strength.
Marie Steiner continues, he placed them in the temple of his mystery dramas and spoke to us in greater depth about their significance. And again, he placed them into our esoteric school and let us approach again and again the various aspects of thinking, feeling, and willing, which are an expression of these altars.
A start had been made in fulfilling the central demand of Goethe's fairy tale to bring the mysteries, the subterranean temple, out of occult obscurity into the full light of day, available to all moral seekers.
100 years ago, on July 8, 1924, in Steiner's lecture on Karmic Relationships, Volume 3, he asks, what is anthroposophy in its reality? My dear friends, if you comprehend all the wonderful, majestic imaginations which are present as super-sensible cognitive ritual and translate them into human concepts, what you have is anthroposophy. At this point, I was going to read a short poem about Isis, and I had prepared this poem, and when I was looking at the time that we have to work with and the frame that we're working in here, I realized that it probably wasn't long enough because it was only 4 or 5 lines. So I was looking for something to put in its place in this small interlude here. And as I was going through my books and notes, I picked up Faust, which Steiner, wrote a lot about, said a lot about Goethe and Faust. And I noticed that the very last verse, when after Faust is taken up into heaven, the last thing he says is to speak about the eternal feminine, which is an aspect of Mary and Isis and what we're talking about here. But the very last verse is a chorus, and it says that all that is changeable is but a reflection. The unattainable here becomes action. Human discernment here is passed by. The eternal feminine draws us on high. And I thought, why, after spending the majority of his life working on Faust, and with all of its deep esoteric significance, his deal with Mephistopheles, and how in the end Mephistopheles actually loses the deal, the heavens open, and and Faust is taken up. Why would he end that with that verse about the eternal feminine? And in particular, what he says, all that is changeable is but a reflection. The unattainable here becomes action. At this point, Faust is taken into heaven. So there's a location that he's speaking of here when he says, all that is unattainable here becomes action. Because there are things that we cannot attain physically that we will be able to attain spiritually. But here is passed by, the eternal feminine draws us on high. The eternal feminine, in one aspect of her, the mother God, the mother aspect of God, is a creative force in nature. It is what takes a seed and turns it into the final product, whether that be in the womb or the pod of a seed, or anything wherein the seed grows and becomes grown. So this growing, this creative aspect, which in a way is like our evolution, our trajectory forward, is still even what's pulling us in heaven. That eternal feminine, that eternal creative force of the mother aspect of God, even when Faust is in heaven, already released from the chains of Mephistopheles. The chorus, the final words are, the eternal feminine is still pulling us forward. So I thought that was very interesting. And I just really started thinking about this not very long ago. So I haven't been able to meditate on it very deeply. But considering the significance of Faust and Goethe, who, as we know, Steiner called, a very great initiate, and revealed many things in the Beautiful Snake and the Green Lily, or the Green Lily and the Beautiful Snake, and Faust, and even the Travels of Young Werther. We know that Goethe didn't write anything superficial, that there's some deep meaning there. For him to close his most epic work with a reference to the eternal feminine, I thought was pretty impressive, pretty interesting also, that I would find it right at this time when we're doing this festival right now. So I wanted to share that.
It's so interesting too that Faust is being taken up to heaven, just like the Assumption, right?
Yeah, because Faust is going to heaven. He was trapped by Mephistopheles according to the contract, but it was his altruism in the end that won the day, where, so, heaven opened, the angels come, they're raining the roses down on Faust, and they pull him away from Mephistopheles. And the last words that are uttered before everything ends and goes dark is, the eternal feminine always pulls us forward.
Yeah, because he's a striving human being, right? So if you continue to strive, then there's always hope.
Yeah.
And that ending too really makes me think about the divine feminine is the future.
Yes.
This is what's calling toward us now, the future. And
Right.
it is the new Isis.
And it kind of points also that there will be some type of connection with the divine feminine, the eternal mother aspect of God, that we will gain access to after this evolutionary stage. Once our physical world is done, once we pass from the flesh, what is now impossible will then become action. So it's a new stage of becoming. New actions are being created there, and there the eternal feminine is still drawing us forward. So it was very interesting to me. I'm going to do it a lot. I'm going to give it a lot more concentration and study once we're done with this, because it caught my interest, especially with the correspondence with what we were doing here.
Yeah. My husband and I went to Dornach to see Faust at the Goetheanum, and it was very powerful. And we worked with the text. We did it as a study group, and we read it out loud, the play, and it was really powerful to do that beforehand. And
Yeah, I bet that was special.
we're going to go for the mystery dramas this year. They're doing them over the Holy Night. So everybody come on, let's make a pilgrimage to Dornach for the Holy Nights this year.
They're doing all 4 of them, right?
I think so, yeah.
Wow. I'd love to be there.
Well, thank you all for making those connections, Richard, Hazel, Lisa. I find it fascinating to live into these correspondences, which help us read the patterns, which will determine the signature of the spiritual essence behind it all.
I mean, if we just look at the puzzle pieces provided by comparative history, we can bring the essence of these clues into the calendar of the soul, highlighting the connections with those who were born or who died on that day.
Right. And to tune into the various holy days, the festival life, the wheel of the year, the seasons, the saint of the day, the overlays of events like natural disasters or other significant happenings in history, related things or seemingly unrelated things that happen on that same date throughout time.
Fascinating. This whole line of research we can explore, it can provide many insights. I mean, for instance, today in 1248, in honor of the Feast of the Assumption of Mary, the foundation stone of the Cologne Cathedral is laid. It was built to house the relics of those three wise men.
That's an interesting thing to ponder. I mean, this connection of Mary with the rise astrologer kings of the East, depicted in sacred architecture.
What do you make of the fact that also on this day in 1281, the Mongolian fleet of the Kublai Khan destroyed by a divine wind?
Maybe the divine wind is a way of describing the activity of the Holy Spirit.
Get this. In 1309, the Knights of St. John reestablished the Isle of Rhodes, which in ancient Greek was the word for rose. And in modern Greek, it refers to the pomegranate. The Knights established their headquarters on the island and renamed themselves the Knights of Rhodes.
And in 1534, the Jesuit order is founded.
And in 1769, it's the birthday of Napoleon Bonaparte.
And on August 15th in 1910, we have the very first performance of Rudolf Steiner's first mystery genre, The Portal of Initiation, opened today in Munich.
How crazy to think that on this same day in 1914, the Panama Canal opens for the first time.
And in 1917, it was the death day of Hermann Joachim. Rudolf Steiner did his funeral address. Joachim was an esoteric anthroposopher and Freemason who worked with his ritual group Mystica Eterna.
Did you guys grow up watching The Wizard of Oz? Well, in 1939, it premiered at Grauman's Chinese Theater in LA.
Okay, so now we start to see another trend. In 1945, Japan surrenders in World War II.
In 1947, India gains independence from British rule.
In 1948, the Republic of Korea is established.
Now we're getting a little more contemporary. Were any of you around for the Summer of Love? The year was 1969, and this was the opening of the Woodstock Music and Art Festival in upstate New York.
And I remember in 1971, when I was 7, watching the news with my father on television, when President Richard Nixon completely broke from the gold standard.
That was a turning point for the economic realm, a real poisoning the well.
I remember hearing in 2001, astronomers announced the discovery of the first solar system outside of our own. They said they discovered 2 planets orbiting a star in the Big Dipper.
There are many connections we can make, many stars in the sky, great spiritual beings waiting for us to join the conversation in our speaking with the stars. Many symbols on the trestle board calling to be traversed and embodied.
And myth is a mighty way of living into the archetypal symbols. And so it is that today, on this Ides of August, we will bring you the new Isis myth. And it came to us from Rudolf Steiner over 100 years ago, right? And so these 100-year milestones are really an important Rosicrucian mystery. They really give us the imagination that says the tomb of the great initiate Christian Rosenkreutz is opened every 100 years. And what this symbolizes is that what lay in the tomb, all the spiritual impulses set forth a century before, which we weren't mature enough to take up at that time, are now, after 100 years, available again. But we have to be the ones to resurrect them from the tomb. We have to renew the spiritual roots that have lain in Pralaya, making ourselves ready, willing and able to harvest what is grown from the cosmic seeds planted in the earth by those great helpers of humanity.
That's right. We are in the midst of the centennial for the refounding of Anthroposophia. So we can engage with these Jubilee impulses to create a reality where the new Isis can be unveiled by humanity in full consciousness as part of the new mysteries of Anthroposophy. This is our goal.
Yes, Rudolf Steiner told this tale on Epiphany, the last of the Holy Nights, and Joan of Arc's birthday.
So, opposite of the wheel of the year from where we are now.
Steiner spoke the new Isis myth in Lecture 3 of Ancient Myths and the New Isis Mystery, Their Meaning and Connection with Evolution. And 2 years later, on Christmas Eve, Steiner told us, "It is not the Christ we lack, but the knowledge of Christ, the Sophia of Christ, the Isis of Christ we lack."
So I have adapted the myth so that the voice of the new Isis is spoken by all of us in the first person. Since now in our time, this archetype must speak through each of us in the intentional threefolding of art, science, and spirituality.
This modern myth is not intended to be dissected intellectually. Perhaps we can just let the words and images resonate of themselves. This myth, like many fairy tales and legends, can get dark. A good myth will stir up the consciousness, and it may loosen some of our shadows. Take this as a good sign.
Yes. It gives us an opportunity to trust, to let our soul ripen these mythic imaginations. And it's true. I mean, we must face the inconvenient truth of the adversarial forces, which have their parts to play in the drama of life.
As well as the cultivating of a sublime faith in the power of transformation.
Are we ready to begin? Okay. Let us attend to the myth telling of the new Isis.
And so it was that it happened like this. While humankind was busy being distracted by the materialistic thinking of the deceiver, the hardener, the denier, the fallen light bearer, the seducer, spirited me away. He slew my divine wisdom, carried me out into space, sunk me deep into the world ocean.
Isis, Sophia, wisdom of God, Lucifer has slain her, and on wings of cosmic forces carried her away into the depths of space. Christ's will, working in us, shall tear her from Lucifer, and on grounds of spiritual knowledge call her to new life in human souls. Isis, Sophia, wisdom of God.
And so, dear human beings, when you look out into the heights and see the stars, moving now only according to mathematical lines, there you see the grave of the world soul. For my divine wisdom, the Sophia of Isis was slain.
Will you seek me? Will you dare to approach the science of fallen light with its mathematical abstraction, gathering the courage to see past the fear-based materialism of the deceiver?
Armed with the force of the word, the being of love, look for me, dear ones, in the bow of color. For the seducer has spread me out into the beauty of the whole universe. I shine forth from the cosmos in an aura of many colors. Yet I am hard to see, for the fallen light has blurred and washed out my colors in all their clear distinctiveness, blended and merged them into a dull, uniform, electric light.
Dear Goethe sought me, yet he was not able to completely spiritualize his discoveries just yet. Still am I spread out over the marvelous, manifold, and secret deeds of the whole cosmos.
And so our story continues, dear friends, closer still to this now. For as time went on, the age of secular science got stronger, and spiritually unaware, ill-behaved persons, lacking in culture or artistic appreciation, concerned only with the materialistic goals, grew.
And I was pushed further back into the darkness by the smug, narrow mind of conventional immorality.
Yet and still there was a true human being, a humble initiate who knew me. He knew me through my beloved son Michael and our connection to the being of love.
The humble initiate worked to prepare the Michaelites for a new way of thinking, a renewed way of living and doing.
And so, in the midst of all this, there upon a hill, some say it was St. Odile's Hill, where the Grail mysteries lay in spiritual seclusion among the caves of the Hermitage. There, hidden in plain sight, was erected a building which was considered to be very remarkable in the land of materialism.
To use the language of Goethe, the building represented an open secret, for the building was open to all, and in fact, everyone could see it at most convenient times. But most people saw only the surface of something that was to them an interesting oddity. Most people looked past what was represented there in the detailed craftsmanship outpicturing the sacred.
Hazel, are you screen sharing?
Yes.
Good. A large wooden hand-hewn statue was intended to be the central point of the building. This statue presented a group of beings, a representative of humanity, and two figures showing the adversarial polarities known as Lucifer, the seducer, and Ahriman, the deceiver.
People looked at the statue and could hardly see humor up in the corner, and did not know in this stage of scientific abstraction in the land of materialism that the statue was in fact really the veil for my invisible being, brought down in part from the starry ocean heights through the purified imagination of that humble initiate.
The sculptural group that he carved was in reality the veil for my invisible being, which was unfortunately not noticed by the people who looked upon it, for a dull veil of illusion covered the eyes of the onlookers, so they could not see that it was I, the new Isis there, behind this artistic covering.
Only a very few unusual folk with special abilities in that land of scientific profundity had ever fathomed this remarkable connection between what was visible and what, as the new Isis, was concealed behind that open and evident secret.
But please remember, dear ones, that behind the figure was not an abstract new Isis, but my true wisdom, embodied as the actual new Isis Mary Sophia, carved into matter for the first time by the humble initiate.
There was some few who, with special circumstances and rare meditative moments, had caught a glimpse of me at this new Isis and had found that I was asleep.
Sometimes these people were able to turn in those special moments and read the inscription, which is plainly there at the spot where the statue stands, but which has been read by very few. Yet the inscription stands clearly there, just as clearly as the inscription once stood on my completely veiled form in ancient Egypt.
The ancient admonition read, I, Isis, am all that has been, all that is, or ever shall be. No mortal hath me unveiled.
The new inscription says, I am the human being. I am the past, the present, and the future. Every mortal shall lift my veil.
I am a human being. I am the past, the present, and the future. Every mortal shall lift my veil.
Then along came, as a spirit visitor, a being who approached my sleeping figure as the new Isis. And this being came back again and again. And as this sleeping Isis, I considered this spirit visitor to be my special benefactor. And because of his keen attention, I thought perhaps I loved him.
And so it was that one day I came to believe in a strange illusion, or was it a fantasy, or perhaps the past in shadow form? I did not then know.
The visitor also believed in this particular illusion, which was that I, as the new Isis, had given birth.
I considered the spirit visitor, who I looked on as my patron, to be the father. He regarded himself as the father, but in reality, he was not.
And then I came to see that the spirit visitor was none other than Apophis, also called Typhon or Set, the Egyptian evil one, in a new form, a clever combination of the seducer and the deceiver, who believed that he could acquire a special increase of power in the world if he took possession of me again as the new Isis.
And so it was that as the new Isis, I had given birth to an offspring, but I did not yet know its nature. I knew nothing of its character or being.
I felt I had to move it away from the new Typhon, so I dragged my offspring into far-off lands to keep her safe. I trailed the new offspring about, and since I had dragged her through so many regions of the world, she fell to pieces, into 14 pieces, through the very power of the world.
Yes, as the new Isis, I carried my offspring into the world, and the world dismembered her. 14 pieces. 1 plus 4 to equal 5, the number of humanity.
When the spirit visitor, the new cleverly combined deceiver and seducer, the new Typhon, had come to know of this, he gathered together the 14 pieces, and with all the data of modern science, he again made a being, a single total out of the 14 pieces.
But in this being, there were only mechanical laws, the law of the machine, not the true ideal of the human being.
And so it was, my friends, that a being had arisen with the appearance of life, but with the laws of the machine.
And since this being had arisen out of 14 pieces, it could reproduce itself again 14-fold. And the new Typhon could give a reflection of his own being to each piece, so that each of the 14 offsprings of myself as the new Isis had a countenance that resembled the new Typhon.
And I had to follow this whole strange affair, half divining it, half knowing that I could see the whole phenomenal change that had come to my offspring. I knew that I had dragged her about the world, that I had brought all this to pass myself.
But I was not alone. There came a day when, through the service of the humble initiate, I began to envision my offspring in her true, genuine form. And I was able to collect her again, to gather her from a group of spirit beings who had received her from some helpful elementals.
As I took the true countenance of my offspring, which only through an illusion had been stamped into the countenance of Typhon, there dawned upon me a remarkable mystic vision.
I suddenly noticed that I still had the cow horns of ancient Egypt, in spite of having become the new Isis. And lo and behold, when I had this vision, the power of my augury summoned, some say old Typhon himself, some say Mercury, the god of healing, and he was obliged through the power of my clear sight as the new Isis to set a crown on my head in the place of where once the old Isis had worn the crown, which Horus had seized from her, right there on the spot where I had worn the cow horns.
But this crown was merely made of paper, covered with all sorts of marks of a clever scientific nature, important looking charts and graphs, statistics, yet and still it was paper. So now I had two crowns, the cow horns and the paper crown, embellished with all the acumen of scientific profundity.
Then, through the strength of my inspired new clairvoyance and the dedicated work of the humble initiate, there arose in me one day the deep meaning, as far as the age could reach, which is inscribed in the St. John's Gospel as the Logos, the Word renewed.
There arose in me the revelation of the true significance of the being of love's sacrifice for all the ages yet to come.
Through this strength, the power of the cow horns grasped the paper crown and changed it into a golden crown, a golden throne that was in truth a chalice.
A holy grail, which can hold the power of the word newly forged through a spiritual science founded from the fires of rebirth at that fateful Christmas conference presided over by the humble initiate, activating the foundation stone of love planted in all hearts that are open to my light of wisdom.
Wisdom that is born of truth, the truth of love.
Courage that is born of wisdom, the courage to realize that crystallized pain is wisdom gained, that out of pain, consciousness is born.
And beauty is born of the wise balance between truth, courage, and pain.
And so it is, dear ones, that the humble initiate named my redeemed offspring Anthropos Sophia,
So that now I can live within your human soul, the bridal chamber of the heart, where through your focused free willing, a sacred marriage can be sanctified.
The sacred marriage of spirit to soul, of warmth to light, of wisdom to love.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? If you would, go ahead and unmute. Feel free to unmute yourselves.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
We will do a little eurythmy at the end, but we thought we'd just let that myth breathe in the air a little bit there. What was your impression of it? It's so powerful what he gives us to work with. Such an imagination.
Yeah.
So perfect for today, don't you think?
It's
Yeah.
incredible. I
It was-
really want to thank all of you.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
I wonder if anyone else has any thoughts, any idea about your own possible personal relationship to the concept of bringing the new ISIS into the world, and about the concept of assumption in this question of purifying and developing the being so that the entire being can be assumed. How do we work? How do we bring this material into our daily life? And any thoughts?
I think
go ahead. Yeah.
one way that we do it is with our artistic expression in the Rudolf Steiner Rosicrucian teachings, because a lot of the occult groups and orders are highly intellectual, which means they study all the time, they do rituals and things, but there's not really an artistic expression to the same depth that we have in anthroposophy and in the Mizraim, where obviously the rituals themselves are an artistic expression, but so is what we're doing right here, this play, and the poems that we write and the artwork that we do. That is getting in touch with what I would consider a feminine aspect of ourselves, because it's more connected to the emotional nature, whereas most of the occult orders are highly intellectual, which has a masculine kind of tendency about it. So just the teachings of Steiner in activities such as this, and activities of the ritual, which is an artistic expression, and the way that we take our occult knowledge and use it and put it into some type of action in our daily life, rather than just being hermits closed up in a lodge or at home reading books all the time. That expression to me in an artistic way is very feminine. And I think that's one way that within our group specifically, we try to bring that balance into it.
Beautiful. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Any questions about the Mystica Americana? Mary, unmute for us.
Place.
There you
Okay,
go.
there. The way this landed on me is, I'm just really grateful for all of it, and it brings up a thought that. So I was raised in a family where Mary was very solidly at the center. Really very important in our family. And we prayed the rosary after dinner for peace, things like that, as little children, without it being at all intellectual. It's just some practice that our mother really led us in. And it seems to me that by using myth through time, it allows people through their life to continue to unfold this wisdom, right? It's very real as a child. Then there's another stage and another stage and another stage as we grow in our own wisdom. We can see these stories with more significance, deeper significance, and live into them more broadly. And I think that there was a point in my life when I realized that what I thought was most religion, most churches, they stop the evolution of thought and wisdom. and keep people at a very limited, teenage, maybe not even that level. And no wonder people flee it and want more, because they are growing. And the institution doesn't meet us. But I think by having all these figures enlivened for us, make it possible for us to continue our evolution, and understanding, living into the power of what this divine feminine means in our lives, what we can bring. And I especially liked the way you were talking about wisdom, beauty, and strength. We can do that all the time. We can do that every day in our home life. We can create it. We can do it in our relationships. We can bring it to our groups. It doesn't have to be a big deal. I mean, it can be. Creating really big ritual is fun and great also. I like that also. But all these little ways where you're doing it, it has power, and people don't need to all recognize what you're doing necessarily. Still brings a softness and a trueness to whatever we're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. That's beautifully said. I really can identify with that daily, the opportunity to look around our world and view the world through the lens of beauty, strength, through these things that we can choose in the most unpleasant situations to to view in a new way, to look through a new lens for this wisdom and this beauty. We can choose to transform our environments and our relationships in very small ways, to strengthen them, to find the challenges, to find beauty when we come into an engagement with somebody who's somewhat challenging, to find the beauty in that, and to find the strength to speak heart to heart, to have the courage to open and see the strength building opportunities that come from these moments of conflict, and bring a greater sense of beauty into the world. So thank you. Who else? Other thoughts? Anyone? Orland.
Oh, dear friends, thank you. I was so magnetized to join you tonight.
We're honored.
I was trying to reflect on what got me here today. And of course, Hazel, your post always makes me pause. So thank you for the gifting, the link for tonight's contribution, and deep gratitude to everyone for holding this space so reverently. Right before I sign on, a dear friend from living in Las Vegas with his family called me and shared that they were just waiting for the doctors to determine whether their son will be taken off of life support. And I was struggling. Where do I stand? Where do I? And so I'm still waiting for them to call me back to tell me what the decisions are. But this is the decision, this space, that something has been decided for humanity, created for us to receive, that is outside of the normal range of what we get as the day. And I think this is really what I really needed this tonight to prepare for whatever else is to come over the evening, because there is this mystery within our lives and our shared relationships, and it's easy to be pulled into this world's issues all the time. And I'm just glad for this spaciousness, for what will take me into the night and into other meditations later this evening. But in 1995, I went to the Goetheanum at the invitation of Sophia Walsh, who did most of the mystery dramas presentations of early years. And she wanted me to, this was my first visit there, to come to the Goetheanum. And it was such that there was no event, no host, no one there. And so she asked the custodian if he could open the doors and let me in. It was a Sunday morning, no one there to describe anything, and he just opened all the doors and I walked through alone. And it was something like what you shared tonight. It did not require just meditation, just meditative, to allow the beings whose abode it is to guide. And there was like this introduction into the supersensible wisdom of anthroposophy that never had to be reinterpreted in a way because of this heart feeling for the truth of it. And so it remains with me that this was my first introduction to this abode of this being of Sophia Isis, and it still lives in my heart deeply, of course. And I thank you for this representation of how we are called to be together. So thank you so much. And I will keep following your introductions and invitations. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Orland, and many blessings for your dear friends and their decisions, and
Yeah.
you know, may wisdom be with them, and grace. Yeah. Are there any other thoughts? Any other questions? Anything? Well, my friends, shall we close then? Hazel, any thoughts, any closing thoughts from you before we?
Well, I really appreciate that, you guys are out there in Texas and people are wherever they are and everybody's doing their things. And yes, we can come together and make cyberspace our altar. We can make anything our altar. We can work with the relational aspect of our karma. And that's the new mysteries, because we have to do it together. We have to help each other in these milestone moments and in the everyday life. So may this festival life, which gives us that milestone to stand on, where we can all be together and just breathe in and take in the energies that are happening, may we continue to cultivate that together as a growing community.
Indeed.
So I just want to say one little thing. This little Isis necklace that I have was the first real gift that my husband gave me back in 1978. And I'm approaching 15th anniversary of his passing. And Hazel, you wrote in the beginning of this about the Michael school and this, these suggestions that Dr. Steiner gave us about a reconvening of souls in from the Egyptian, the third epoch, coming through the fourth up to the fifth, and the recapitulation of the third and the fifth together. And when my husband gave me this, he was, I used to say, just an absolute Neanderthal regarding spirituality. And I'd never mentioned to him that I was completely obsessed with Isis. I thought that he bought it from somebody who stole it from somebody or something like that. And I years later met a person who identified me as his wife. And I said, well, how do you know I'm his wife? And he said, I made that for you. And it was quite a shock to me that I thought my absolutely sort of atheistic, Jewish, non-spiritual person was an incredible spiritual force who guided me through and into the path that I'm on. And so this, it feels very visceral, this sense that if we open ourselves to receiving, we never know where the Sophia is coming, and who's bringing it to us. And each person that we encounter, how they're weaving into our karma, bringing us forward, giving us ever more opportunities to express in the truth, the beauty, the wisdom. And my special area has been about physicalizing the expression of spirit and making spirit visible. And so it's very oriented toward the physical movement. And therefore, I'd love to close this invite anyone who'd like to come up on your feet. We'll just do a little bit of eurythmy. Or you're welcome to stay in your chair, follow along, or just receive it. And if you'd like, you can pin my image, or we can just stay on the group image. We're going to just do the moon, our Isis moon. We'll do the gesture for the moon, which is crossing over, and then the letter, the vowel sound I, which will come across like this, and then we'll the moon, and then we'll do we'll spell out the name Isis for this new unveiling of the Isis. We'll begin first by recognizing that incredible force, the I am force within your own chest, your own center of the ideal universal being, the sun-like center. In Isis world, the Osiris, but in the Christian world, the Christ light in you. And to begin, as we allow that Christ sun within us to awaken, radiate deep down through our entire physical body into the earth, and radiate out into the entire sphere around us. You can imagine that your room is filling with this light, this incredible golden light. And with that, we are in effect a goblet receiving and radiating this light into the space. And then we bring ourselves into a state of reverence. And we can expand ourselves out and gather the moon forces, slightly cupping the hands and bringing them as we gather these moon forces, crossing here, and then into the I, it's part I, part E, bringing that across and over, and across and over, and then back, gathering the forces of the moon together. Kind of violet light. And now we go to, once again, we'll spell out the letters of Isis. So this I, and then an S comes down. We form this beautiful Scorpio S, and then I, and then S. Opening and bringing that all into that powerful sunlight center, with the moon and the light, the beauty, the strength, the wisdom.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Isis. Thank you, Anthroposophia. Thank you, Rudolf Steiner. Thank you, friends. Let us take this out into the world through our every thought, word, and deed. Blessings to all.
Blessings to all.
Everyone for coming, for participating. Y'all have a
Yes.
good evening.